So we've got a situation where we've got a no-show. Poor Mick Lanigan has been ill in bed. We've just found out we're now half an hour into the session, and we've got to produce a head. It's a very important part of the process. So immediately, we've got photographs that Danny took of the portraits. They've come through. I've got memories because I have met this one, Mickey Lanigan. He came in with his grandson. So I've got memories of his personality. We've got a very big hat that he wanted to wear.
Here's Mick.
So I've already kicked off with just sketching in what I remember. And now information is coming in off Facebook, side profiles, pictures, and slowly through the session, more and more information is going to come in. And we'll see what happens. But we're going to get a likeness of Mickey Lanigan.
Sorry, Mick.
So this is fascinating and intriguing, and I'm quite up for the challenge. We've got a film crew, wonderful students who we need to see how they respond as well to the crisis of filming someone, making a sculpture of someone who's not in the room. There'll be lots of periods of quiet and silence because I am not going to be concentrating on talking too much, and I'm waiting for stuff to come through from students who might be printing off Facebook, I'm hoping. Luckily, we've got a big hat, which is going to give a lot of the personality away, and we were going to do the hat anyway, because it's part of Mick's identity. Mick is a Hatfield miner, very proud Hatfield miner. He's been part of the campaign to save the colliery, the pithead, the last pithead standing in Doncaster, the regions of Doncaster. He was injured early on. He was a ripper. I can remember a lot of it actually. He was a ripper, which means he was on the coalface. And his family still live in Stainforth. He has a very lovely family, and we did his grandson Connor in a previous film.
It's going to be an interesting one, to say the least. What is going to be quite cool is if we have like a board of these images, we just keep adding to the board.
Yes. Yeah. But it's very interesting because, you know, when I first did this whole project, I started off thinking there's no way I can do a head in 2 hours, it's impossible. Then I started to have to think because it was becoming a distinct possibility that I might be thrown into what you call in my mind's pit, the den or whatever you want to call it, where I was going to have no choice but to come up with some form of response, some way of making a head in 2 hours whilst interviewing people and trying to be amusing and entertaining on a camera. So we were really surprised when it all kicked off how, well, for a start, I'd never seen myself make sculptures before. So for example, doing that was a bit of a shock. I didn't realise how much my mouth was involved. I didn't realise how I used to divide up tiny nuggets of things and how I store them in different parts of my mouth to get exactly the right shape. So it's interesting how you start to create a kit in your mouth, a store shelf, like a hamster, of the right sizes of object for the right bits of face.
So you're actually moulding the wax in your mouth?
Yeah, it's divided up. And do a pimp on it, and then you chin it, just to get the right bit for an eyelid. Do a little sausage, and just put it in. In it goes.
So what we could do is we could turn this from you interviewing the sitter to us interviewing you whilst doing an imaginary sitter that is real but isn't here.
Yeah.
That could be quite cool.
I think that's the way it's going to go.
So guys, if anyone thinks of any questions that they want to ask Laurence, anything that can put him on the ropes, make an awkward situation, we are live streaming.
I think we can safely say the situation is awkward.
I like it.
I don't think we need to go down any more awkward route. I think we're improvising here, and I'm up for the challenge. But, you know, we're talking about sculpture and making sculpture. This is an absolute no-no. This is like, absolutely, you just don't do this.
how many rules of sculpting do you
Well,
think
there's,
you've broken
there's a whole idea of
over this
authenticity.
last year?
Yeah. But you know, there's the craft, there's the skill of portraiture. I'm a member of the Royal Society of Portrait Sculptors. You know, I'm putting 6 heads in this year. They were really. I did a lecture at the National Portrait Gallery about this project, and the society said that we should. You know, you're only allowed 2 heads in every year, but they said they wanted a set of the miners' heads because of the project's so interesting. And it's really quite. You know, if you think about it, we're talking now. How many centuries of portraiture has taken place in man's history? And I think this is quite unique. Even, you know, I don't think people like Rodin even did these kind of quick, sketchy kind of portraits like this. So
the Rodin Bergs of Calais,
mm.
how long did he spend making them, do you know?
Well, I mean, the project was 2 or 3 years in the making, but, you know, the actual, I mean, he went to Calais and did portraits of people in Calais to see if there was a physiognomy that the Calais people had that he could use in the sculptures.
How long did them sit-ins last?
Well, he would have been, I don't know how fast Rodin worked, because there's no footage. That's the interesting thing about this. There is footage of this. Interesting footage of every bloody mark I've made has been recorded.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of hours of modelling has been recorded.
So we're on to, I think this is around the 34th, something like that. I think our numbers are slightly, you are actually getting we're up to about 34, so that would be 68 hours worth
Of film about modelling.
They've asked if they want them printed on the Epson printer.
Yes, high quality.
I mean, your little screen, you might move in a table or something. Look, a chair.
What we'll do is we'll put them onto one of these.
I think we're going to have an interesting scenario here. Yes, I mean, that kind of recording of practice is an incredible archive in itself. We're not just talking about, actually it's very interesting to be honest. I have a lot of students who come and say, can I spend time with you watching modelling? And I always go, no. So it's a very private business and I can't, and I don't know what I'm doing. So I can't teach because I'm thinking. You know, I'm not going to, and to be honest with you, they're my techniques. They're not like universal techniques. This is not a universal technique that sculptors learn.
It's not how you teach.
No. And I know. What I'm doing is, this is Laurence Edwards making it up as he goes along. So, I'm not going to tell you how Laurence Edwards makes it up as he goes along. I could
but
try.
You've got to be quite comfortable in your own skill set, and that'd only come over X amount of years of refining your practice to sit there and go completely exposed, which must have been daunting on the first one.
Yeah, especially
completely exposed with your trade, your craft, and a 2-hour time limit in which to create.
And the challenge of wooing a whole damn community through my skill set.
That was one of the best things for me was at the start of this project when the first time I met you, we were sat around the boardroom table. Everyone had assumed that we'd actually arrived together because we walked in together. And you were talking about how it was Mick, wasn't it, that was prodding you in the chest?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was your first meeting of the Yorkshire
with this
folk.
guy. With wonderful Mick. He's this incredible, passionate character that I'm so pleased that he wanted to have his head done.
So when, obviously, we live in the mining villages, we're from the mining background of Doncaster and the surrounding areas. How when you took this down to the National Portrait Gallery, how was it received? What were the questions? Because it's an interesting divide between what Londoners know about mining.
I think it's about engagement with community through sculpture, and it's become an incredible organic process, but it's become something about how you engage with people through your skill set and through your skill, through portraiture, through modelling, which is an incredibly intimate relationship for a start. I'm beaming up people's noses into people's ears, and in this situation, they're revealing themselves and their lives to me. So we've got this incredibly weird dynamic where people are being really honest about their lives and their stories, and I'm naked because I've got to make a picture, a face, a sculpture. So we're both vulnerable, we're both aware that there's a camera watching us. It's not like we're quietly by ourselves in a room like usual. We're actually being watched as well by people who are needing to be, like all these young students that are needing to be impressed and go, God, Laurence, you're a brilliant sculptor. And I need all that to go on. That's got to happen. Because, you know, there's a lot of ego involved. So, so the dynamic is the interesting thing. And then, you know, to be impressed by the results is important. And what is the result? Is the result an accurate representation, or is it a mood? Is it a feeling about the person? I think some of the portraits...
I think some definitely have a feeling. It's like, from my photography background as opposed to sculpting, although it's an art form that we share, you look at a portrait and you look at some of the leading artists like Don McCullum and his Shell-Shock Soldier and stuff like that, and you look at that image and you think, you get that emotive, you get that feeling when you look at that image. And like, I remember that picking up some of these heads, and not necessarily once they've just been done, but hours later or the next morning, and you see them floating in the water, and you lift it out that water, and everything about that emotion, that mood, whatever it is just sat in this wax. It's bizarre.
And it's like the freezing of time. As a time that, you know, it's an incredible luxury, this. The other thing is, like, I don't know, I said it on camera before. I go home and look at, I think we do 3 of these in a day. I look at my family, I'm thinking, well, Sunday afternoon, I should take him into the garage. I should do my kids, I should do my wife, I should do my father, my mother, my parent, and I should be doing this at home, and I don't. Being forced to do this.
Maybe we should come down and force you to do it.
Yeah.
We'll bring the students.
So we end up with this incredible...
Mum and Dad.
End up with this incredible luxury for me. To be forced to be needed. To find that suddenly this is a necessary activity and I've got to deliver. Forces you out of that kind of indolence.
Have you found that when you're working on other sculptures now, have you found that techniques that you're learning in this intensive 2-hour thing,
it's very, very helpful.
You're taking into other stuff?
Oh yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, even someone said to me yesterday, the other day, they said, I think you doing 40 heads in Doncaster has changed everything. It's changed the way you look.
In terms of what? Because of the volume of work, or the study, or the intensity?
I think you just to go through 40 skulls, 40 personalities. That none of them are kind of selected. They're kind of all random. You have to respond, and you have to solve problems so fast, and you're learning about so many facial types and structures that you go in your memory bank is full of so much more information now, and your mark making and everything is so much more less self-conscious, much more I'm learning now, I can't believe that this is beginning to feel like a human being already.
We're in the cameras, guys.
And it begins, it's feeling like him. So that's weird.
This one, I'm just close.
But I don't work with a model at home. I work from memory, which I value because I think this is interesting because I'm working from observation, and it's almost as if often observation not easier, but it does take away a lot of the brain activity when you're imagining ahead, because you have the whole world to choose from. You have no, all you want to do is say something about an emotion. You want to talk about emotions, and whereas you're given an emotion, you're given an atmosphere with this, you're given a situation. When you're by yourself in a studio just modelling ahead without anyone around, you've got to work it all out in your head. You've got to go, okay, what do I want to say? What do I want to say?
What will be interesting from this one, because obviously we've not got the sitter here, it will be interesting, like at the end of today, when we go back to the bucket and we lift out his head and go, it's him, or it isn't him.
or it's believable. But I know, I definitely need the side profiles. You definitely need, I'm running out of information here. And I realise that the side profile is, there was a picture of him on stage looking out to an audience. And it was so out of focus. But there's the shape of a head, and I got the chin, I immediately got the chin, and understood where the chin was, and the shape of the nose.
Yeah,
And up to that point I had a dish nose, and you suddenly think that actually I do need markers.
let's go and see if we can find this.
And the shape of the hat, which is so part of his personality.
So we've got a replacement for that one. We're just going to get the side profile one printed now.
Oh, that's better. Oh, well done. Very interesting.
Good job to take a photograph, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I'll grab you the other one.
Yeah, much better quality now.
Yeah.
So how come you thought of doing this person's head?
How come I thought about doing it?
Yeah, this one.
Because he's a prominent character in the mining community, and I think it's important to have him recorded and his voice heard. But luckily for us, he's already on film with his grandson who's being done. So we've got his story really, because his grandson was listening to his story at the same time.
Oh, really?
So we've got him talking a lot. So in a funny sort of way, we've got half a job done already. And I was thinking, how are we going to make his story, tell his story again anyway? So fate has taken a hand, I think. We've got a different type of film coming out of this.
Didn't really expect to do this today, did you?
No. But the great thing about being a sculptor or whatever is you have to respond to events. Bizarrely. You know, you have to, things go wrong a lot. And being a bronze caster as well,
As well, yeah.
there's lots of disasters and stuff that you have to actually think fast and on your feet about. So in this kind of sort of way, this is an
So
interesting...
You're going to improvise and then...
Improvise, yeah, exactly. And I'm telling another type of story now.
It's all recorded now, so you can look back at that. So remember that time when
Yeah.
we messed up this show?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. But we've got to get ahead.
Yeah, you are making it. You still give you a time limit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
doing everything that we should do.
Wait, what time did you say? 11 o'clock?
Yeah. 9 to 11. What's the time now?
It's 10:05.
Good.
I've noticed you put like massive like chunks of it first,
Yeah.
and then you smoothen it out.
Yeah, it gets basic shapes. Yeah, get a mass of stuff on first, and then it gets more and more small. The marks get smaller and smaller the further into you get.
You class that as abstract?
No, I call it it's abstract qualities to it.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of shapes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But a lot of reality is a bunch of shapes, abstract.
Got another one of Mick.
That's good. That's a good one.
Where do we want to start collecting all these?
Can you pin that one on there?
On there?
Yeah. Excellent. Back of the neck.
Have a little shrine to
Yeah.
Mick Lanigan.
Really lucky I've met him. I'm really lucky he's got a hat.
What's that say? Heaton Grad.
NUM twin descent with Heaton grad. Yeah, it must be a Russian.
What is quite impressive is we made it 30 heads without any hitches
Yeah.
at all. And then we got the lost wax method last week.
Yeah.
And a no show this time.
I think he's got sideburns. Yeah.
I let Joe know that the show was going on anyway.
How did you find out he was ill?
I texted Joe and she said she's messaged me to see if he's okay. And he said he'd just been ill, so couldn't make it. I just told her check the live stream out if you can. see if we've got some more prints.
Crazy times.
One more.
Oh, well done. Jeez.
Powers of Facebook. Sorry, Mick.
Yeah.
So once you're done with these sculptures that we've done, where do you keep them?
They're all stored at the studio, foundry. They've got a big shelf full of heads.
You have a big shelf full of heads?
Yeah. And then there's all the moulds. Each one's had a mould made of it. And then there's loads of waxes and then there's bronzes. So there's going to be hundreds of the damn things. Plaster, we gave each sitter a plaster. So they go on and on and on. And then people can buy them. So there's probably a whole shelf section in the studio of moulds for Doncaster heads.
And how many heads is there?
40, maybe 40, 45. Yeah. And then,
So, which one is this one?
which number?
Yeah.
We're about 30, well, we've got 12 to go. It's 2 sessions of 6, so this is about 28, 30. So we should break into about, we should get to number 34. I think we're over 40, we're going to have over 40 heads. So we get to over 30 for this week.
This week, so
Yeah, and then we got-
so
And we got one
oh
more.
yeah, 6 a week, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have one more session to take it to the end. And it was when we started, the thought of doing 40 heads was so daunting, so scary, and then we're nearly there.
So who gave you this idea to like start?
It was my idea.
Oh really?
Yeah. Well, my son was reading a book on Rodin, and he said that he noticed that Rodin went to Calais in France to study a load of heads as preparation for a big sculpture he was making. And he said to me, why don't you do that for Doncaster? And I thought, what a brilliant idea. Why don't I just go and do a load of heads of Doncaster people, just to get to know people, you know, to try and understand, listen to their stories, because as I said, it's a very intimate relationship doing a portrait of someone.
Yeah.
And you find out things and you develop a relationship.
That's it, like 2 hours of talking to
Yeah.
someone.
So it's a great way of finding out about mining and about the culture of Doncaster, you know, the special stories involved.
Yeah.
So it was a great way, and then as I was doing it, I realised that the heads themselves were kind of too important to just have lying around, but not using. So then began to think, well, how can I use these heads? And you know, I'm thinking of a big public piece of art. You know, you think of big men, big sculptures and stuff. suddenly switched and thought, why don't I just do loads of small things and just build them up to something very big? So began to think about how to include these in a big piece. This is how the idea evolved.
That's interesting. Doing little things just to make a bigger project.
Oh, we've got more.
One more.
A dossier. It's like we're looking for a criminal. The dossier is building up.
You just want to put it here? Oh wait, where'd you put that? So you were saying before you're doing big sculptures.
Sorry?
You were saying before that you're doing big sculptures.
Yeah, you often think about how to make a big man or something, or a.
Oh, right.
But I had to change my whole approach as this started to evolve.
Different.
Yeah. And that was very, very interesting. You know, how do you use all these heads? Is that a different one?
Not sure.
It's slightly different, isn't
It's
it?
similar.
It's different.
Exactly what?
And then to switch it around to thinking lots and lots of small things making one big thing was much more interesting, and it's much more reflective of how this project is, and also all the voices involved in this project, all the different towns, villages, they've all got to be represented. So this is a great way of bringing all those voices in.
So it's like over 40 heads that you've done, and that's over 40, that's people's life story.
Yeah.
So it's like when you walk into a studio, you like look at each one and you think, oh,
Yeah, I know.
this.
People come in and they go, who it is? I go, well, he did this, that and the other. He got injured and he became and he lost his leg, and he didn't, and he did horse racing underground. Wow. You know, I know all their stories. She was a nurse, she was a strike, you know, run the soup kitchen during a strike. So I have all these kind of stories of the mining community in my studio. It's amazing, honestly. It's such a privilege.
I'm impressed that you can remember all the stories.
Yeah, no, because your brain is open when you're doing this. You're receptive.
Yeah.
Very receptive. And, you know, the stories are interesting. Plus I've got to edit now the films, because they're all going to be a part of the project too. So all the films you're making, we're going to edit and get the best of them out of them. Because there's a lot of bits that aren't quite so interesting, but some of them are fantastic, you know, so I've got to go through the whole lot. I was hoping that we could just leave them as 2-hour films.
Oh, so you can make these films and show them now?
Yeah, so what will happen is when you go to the monument in the end, you'll be able to scan an information board and get these films up on your phone.
Oh wow.
So they're like keys to a whole new way of accessing the community. You get all these stories on your phone. And so it becomes a social piece of social history. Oh, hello, got a bit of tuna and a bit of mayonnaise and something, and a cup of tea and a flapjack or something? Yeah, something like that, would be lovely. Ham and lettuce.
Ham and lettuce.
Thank
So
you.
it might be a farmer's lunch then.
Oh, lovely.
That sounds good.
Brilliant.
I'll have a look then.
Thank you so much.
Crisp, plain cheese and onion.
Cheese and onion, please.
Water and if Daniel made you a cup of tea.
That'll be lovely.
Fine, because I'll put it in our fridge because I'm going down for lunch. Flapjack.
Thank you. She's brilliant. I love her visiting.
What we're thinking, we've got everything that
Okay.
we need, or
Well, I love this criminal dossier wall that's appearing on.
have you got a photograph of this, Hannah?
Oh, I do. I'm just on his Facebook, see if it's anyone.
I've been expertly interviewed by your students.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliantly, actually. Do you think that hat rim is right? It's a bit, what shape is it doing? I've got a hat in the face. It's interesting because in the actual sculpture I've got to do cloth, hats, clothing. So I'm slowly doing more.
So, do you remember I sent you them pictures of the old mining photographs that I found? I think we might be able to stockpile some images, you know, of miners with their nadgers and their, what they call knackers.
Nadgers and knackers?
What were the pants called?
They called them that's not B, isn't it?
Banneckers.
Banneckers.
So we could collate all them so you could start. When do you think you'll start looking at the
I'm starting the miner in the autumn.
in the autumn?
Yeah. He's booked in.
He's booked in. You know whose portrait we haven't got yet, Laurence?
Mine.
Yours.
All yours.
So we've got 40 minutes left. 4-0.
I'm nearly finished.
Are you serious? You can't.
Well, when you haven't got much information, there's not much you can do, you know. You can only go so far, can you? If you have any observations, I don't know.
What are you thinking for glasses?
I don't know, I'm going to get to that bit in a minute. I thought I'd do the eyes. Either I do lines so the eyes can be seen.
I think he's a bit
Wider.
It's quite like rectangular, isn't it?
Yeah. He's got a miner's face. They're often quite narrow, my sculptures, actually, I've realised.
It's probably because it's such hard work down there.
Getting mass into a head is quite difficult. Scale.
Have you got any questions, Hannah? Anything that you sat there and thought, I don't ask.
I think it's
How do you get away with it so long, Laurence? Blagging it.
I mean, if you did think you were blagging it previously on the other 33 heads, this must be the pinnacle of blagging.
Yeah.
What would you normally do? Because this isn't the standard thing, is it? Interviewing someone and making a head into hours.
If you're doing a head, you'd set up in clay. You're on a portrait, you're modelling stand. You're standing there. They're sitting there at your height. And you spend the first day working out the bone structure. And you're measuring the calipers. You're going around all the time measuring the calipers and getting all the structure in the right place, all the points in the right places. And then it's a bit like reconstructing a Neanderthal man from a skull, you know. And then you start to build up the muscle, where the muscles hit the bone. And you do flesh last. So things like ears, nose, hair,
Yeah.
all that goes last. So you're building up the structure to begin with. And that takes a long time of measuring with calipers and modelling tools. And then you so you have 3-hour sessions, afternoon sessions. They go on for about 4 or 5 of those. You get to a point where you can start to, you try not to do anything like this, which is almost like making caricature. Going straight to the bits that give the person away. The hook nose, the big beard, the double chin, the long ears, the hat or whatever. They're all kind of considered to be almost superficial stuff that goes in at the end. And suddenly brings the thing to life because the structure, they stop you looking at the structure.
Yeah.
Stop you looking at the structure of the whole man. So you just have to stay focused on the structure, and then you start to build in. All that stuff comes easily and comes naturally at the end because it just inevitably leads to it. Whereas you're going almost backwards on this, you're going straight into caricature and bits that look like them, picking up the bits that look like them easily.
What have other sculptors said about this? Have you chatted with any of them? And
Yeah, they like them. They're impressed. Yeah.
so it hasn't caused like a
No.
furore. They're going, what the hell are you doing type of thing? Is it
No,
more
no.
like it's an interesting thing?
This is like, oh God, that's fascinating, yeah. I think knowing how it's done properly helps. Knowing why you're breaking, it's a bit like you've got to know what you know. So you've got to know the rules before you can break them, as it were. So if you came in cold without knowledge of doing a head, I think it would be harder. But I think having the knowledge, or a bit of it, gives you license to. Didn't Picasso say that? You've got to know the rules before you can break them. That helps.
I don't know, whenever the word rules is mentioned, I tend to switch off.
Well, we're getting a man with a cloth cap. Whether it looks like him, we don't know. And we'll never know. But we're getting a type of face.
What is noticeable is when there's a sitter there, you tend to load up loads more wax.
Yeah.
So they tend to be the bigger heads.
Mm.
Whereas this is quite a petite one. But maybe that's when you're talking to them and you're in conversation, maybe it's a conscious thing is just you just load it, and then you start to shape it.
Nerves, I reckon a lot of nerves. Keen to get on as quick as possible.
We've got half an hour left.
Okay.
And considering now you started half an hour in.
What I'm finding interesting is, without a head, this stage, you can't really go to the next level. You can't sort of raise, you can't really get into the character. I realise now, it's very interesting, you realise now at this stage, I'm kind of looking, I'm kind of thinking, well, it's getting to the point where...
Try and turn 2D to 3D.
Well, you're just kind of guessing, really. You're thinking, okay, now am I just making a man... I'm not making Mick Lanigan now, I'm making a man with a hat. I'm about to approach glasses because I know that's going to be a big personality. I can't, because the glasses in the photographs are shielding the eyes, I can't really see them. So I might have to go for a kind of a blocked off. So look, I'll just stick a glass on top and see what happens. Wide at the bottom. See, that's not really going to help. I'm going to have to go for frames.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're not going to go for a Captain Bird, we're not going to go for a... So we're going to have to go for hints of glass rather than whole ones.
Will that be hard to cast?
Not, well, yeah.
Or would you cast the glasses separate then?
No, I have to just, well... Problem is, if you're a bronze caster and a sculptor, you often think about casting problems while you're making a sculpture, and that's bad. You don't want the casting to affect the decision making. Because you're not making...
deal with that issue when you get to the
you
fountain.
have to, because otherwise, you start to think about casting problems and not sculptural problems. Really, you've got to be a sculptor now.
So you have a couple of lamps.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Earl Grey black.
Yes, please.
Just looking for the live session with his grandson.
Yeah.
If that'd be any news.
Well, it'd be interesting if anything comes out.
This is in right, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you remember it?
Just trying to find it.
Connor was his name. Connor Hughes.
Got it.
Yeah?
Make it clear.
Oh, bloody hell.
It's more of the character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just some corruption.
Well done, you. Brilliant detective work.
The social media skills.
I think I should go. You know whether they should go for really accurate glasses or just a modelled impression. I think that's quite fun, isn't it? Bit of wiry stuff going on. It's great. This film. It's brilliant.
Is it?
Yeah. Well done, you. You've saved the day. It is definitely like a. It's very much like a kind of a recreation of a man from another time, like an archaeological reconstruction.
When was that video made?
Sorry?
This video you're watching?
That's from the last. We did his grandson,
Right.
so he's sitting next to him, whilst and talking about his life, while I'm doing his grandson. So.
And his grandson didn't say anything.
Well, he was chatting, listening, but you know, obviously his granddad picked up. It was 2 hours, so there's plenty to talk about. So we got his life story there, really, which is great.
And how long ago was it?
It was the first lot, I think, one of the first
Yeah,
lots.
we're one of the first ones.
Oh, wow.
Right, we need some glass tools now. Different type of toolkit.
you ever done this before, like trying to make a sculpture from a picture?
Not really, no.
Oh, so it's the first time.
Yeah. Not in this circumstance, definitely not. I do a lot of imaginary sculptures for myself, but I did a portrait of a sheikh.
A sheikh?
A sheikh, an Arabian sheikh who didn't want to pose but wanted his portrait done. So I had a photographer take photographs from every angle of his head.
Oh wow.
And I made a portrait, but I did it, you know, in clay, life size. And it was to be given to, he'd given loads of money to the royal family and stuff. So it was given to Prince Charles, and then he wanted, every time he gave money, he ended up having his head given to people. So I ended up doing about 7 or 8 castings of him. And I was really pleased, it was all textural like this. But they wanted it smooth. It was only a job, I didn't have any kind of any artistic input, it was a kind of a jobbing job. So we started to sand him down.
Just go in here, yeah?
Thank you.
Just move that big piece of wax on.
So he sanded the face down until it was a smooth shake. And it was amazing. And the thing was, he was giving all this money. I shouldn't say this really, but I haven't mentioned his name. He was giving all this money to various museums, universities.
Oh, wow.
And his people around him, his advisors, acolytes, said, oh, they'd love to have a portrait of you to celebrate your gift. And he'd go, oh, if I must, I must. And the other guys said to the people that were receiving the money, you must, if you want the money, you must have a portrait too. So we ended up, him thinking they wanted his portrait, so he did it as a gift, as part of the custom. And the people that were handling the commission said, look, you must do it. So I was in the middle of doing this thing, which was all part of an etiquette about giving money to various institutions. Very strange. And then he's halfway through the portrait, his mum died. And it's big. Salary was big. The whole family shuts down. All over the world, they always billions and 25 billion quid, one of those big guys. Whole family, all the jobs are shut down in the family, so I get a phone call saying the sheikh is in mourning and will be for some time. All projects have ceased while the family mourns. So please stop doing the sculpture. The job's finished. So I thought, oh God. So I thought, no, I'll write a letter. So I wrote a letter to the advisor saying, could you please pass on my condolences? It's how sad to lose a mother, and I really feel for you, and just I think about you at this time. And I got a email back from the sheikh's advisors saying that the sheikh was very touched by your email, and he'd just like to let you know that he'd like you to continue the job because you obviously respect the family's tradition. So I ended up carrying on with the job. The only job that was carried on was the sheikh's portrait during this time of mourning. I learned a lot that time.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's definitely it.
Hmm?
That's definitely there.
It feels like it, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
definitely is.
We got him on film here. We got the film up.
Oh, have you?
It just helped a lot with his cheek profiles.
Wow, you look a lot younger there.
Do I?
No.
I'm wondering if I did actually. He's much jowlier in reality.
Yeah.
I was being flattering. How am I going to cast these glasses? I don't know.
That's Tom's problem now, isn't it? Sorry, Tom.
I've got to try and keep them quite modelly, because I think if I try and do accurate glasses, I'll end up with a weird effect. Side profiles, isn't it?
Yeah.
forward. Right here.
Yeah, it's a bit fuller in the.
Beard. But it changes from image to image. I think your involvement through the films will be seen as being far. You've become the main advisor in sculptural.
That's frightening enough.
Yeah.
And what are his qualifications within the sculpting world, Laurence? He knows nothing.
Danny will be at the National Portrait Gallery. Give me a lecture on how to advise sculptors in photographic studios.
Yeah. Normally what we have is I come in and ask questions when I need to relieve some pressure on you, but now the questions just put pressure on you.
Yeah. That feels like him on your side.
The only bit that I feel unsure about is the back of that hat, and we've got no reference of it whatsoever. It just looks a bit like maybe it needs like a little crease, you know, halfway up it or something. Should we get pictures of back of flat cap?
We've got his on there. It's fine.
Joe wants to know how's it looking.
Why is she not watching the film?
I think she's in a conference. So I just say watch the film.
Send a photograph. Send a photograph.
Strange, isn't it? Because they do kind of go straight up.
Well, if you look at here, look, there's nothing at the back. It's a big mushroom.
Weird, isn't it? Huge acorn. With this cup, because it's got that little base, can you remember? I have to consciously cover it.
At this stage, I am worried for the mold makers.
Worst case scenario, couldn't you take that off
Yeah.
and cast it and then fix it?
But I don't want to be remodelling glasses every time we do a head of his. I'm glad I did the eyes.
Yeah, it wouldn't work as a solid block. 10 minutes.
Well, from what I remember of Mick Lanigan, it reminds me of him.
Get his earring in.
Yeah.
cuff ones, wasn't it? Yeah, that's definitely side profile.
Thank God for Facebook. I think that's going.
Can't believe you've managed to do that actually.
I can't.
In the space of 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Makes you wonder what I'll do with the rest of my life.
Every time I see a feat like this, I fear for you when Joe finds out.
Yeah.
It's like, Lauren, I just think what Vic would say is, you waste loads of time then. Basically what this shows you is you waste so much time. That's 2 hats that you've done.
Yeah, but I've now feel a bit guilty because of Dennis, whose identity was his hat. And hats have become something I'm not scared of. I mean, they're part of the story, really, aren't they, for a lot of people. I wear a hat.
Did those knives originally come out in knife and fork drawer at home?
Yeah.
And now they've just been with you forever?
Yeah. I'm feeling I got Mick in my hands.
That's a relief.
You be pleased to know Mick? Nice to meet you again. It's a weird kind of voodoo thing,
Yeah.
summoning up the likeness of someone from a long way away. Very strange vibe.
Check the video. You could be watching. I'm not sure he will be.
I don't think you'll realise it's happening.
No.
Has he got an earring in one ear?
I think it's just one. Yeah, it's just his left. It looks like he's got 2 earrings in it. 2 little hoops. few minutes left. I think it's almost there though, isn't it?
Got wider in the face.
Yeah. You can smooth the face down. It's quite smooth, isn't it? Do you think?
Okay, boss.
There's a question.
Oh, bloody hell. Earrings are quite important.
So it's World Book Day tomorrow. Are you coming as Geppetto or?
What? Oh, is that what you have to do?
See, Jay never wants to dress up, so what he's doing is he's very, very clever, and he takes a book out of the library. It's about a footballer. So then he says, I'm going to go in a football kit. So I'll be a footballer. Rather than dressing up as a crocodile or... Definitely. Does the white spirit soften the wax slightly? The last time with the plaster going off underneath the wax.
You'd think we'd iron out all the troubles, wouldn't they? They seem to get more problematic, these trips.
Started off just booking things in and photographing, and then started interviewing. Then I'm making the plaster. I'll be
Now
on the
you're
wax.
advising.
Now I'm advising. I'll be on the wax next week. Then we will have problems.
What, as if you haven't had any already?
No, we'll have big problems. It's 11 o'clock.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Hannah, we've got the final photographs.
There's Mick Lanigan.
We've got a close-up on one of the cameras, guys. That is him.
He's like he's in the room.
That is crazy.
We're going to this camera.
See how things like earrings suddenly give you a piece of personality.
Yeah. What do we think, Mick? Give us a sign.
That's lovely, that's lovely.
Now you're trying to impersonate an older. Could be in bother. You will get.
Great.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah, I am.
Fantastic.
I'm relieved. Thank you, guys.
So only took the power of Facebook, YouTube video from previous ones, portraits like we did already.
God, thanks. What a shock. That was a bit of a thing.
Well done.
Yeah, he's in the water. It's in the water.